Hi, this is Bruce, and in the tutorial we looked at 2D transforms and specifically how to use transform in order to be able to rotate, scale, and translate. And your challenge was to create an interface where we could use our 2D transform skills in order to reveal information that's not immediately apparent on the page. So you can see here, I've got the original file. And so what I want to do is I want to add the information to make it easier to access the code or the CSS or the JavaScript needed in order to do 2D transforms. So let me just paste this. You can see I've created a section. And inside that section, I've got a little nav bar that's going to go along the top with a little I for info. And then I've got a paragraph, and then I've got the CSS here that would allow us to do a transform, and in this particular case, rotate the element 45 degrees. Now I'm just going to back this up because it is code, so spaces and tabs matter. And if I save this and upload it, and refresh, then you can see that that information shows up here. But really what I want it to do is I want it to show up and just be with just the eye on the page and have it slide out from the side. So let's see if we can add some CSS in order to be able to do that. So I'll just put a little comment down here so that we know that this is the solution. And then, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a selector for that section I just made. So let's just do article, since it is inside an article, and then selection, no, not selection, section. And then what we want to do is we want to position it absolute. So it'll be able to go on top or hover over top of the content that's there. I'm going to set a width to, let's say, 500 pixels. And then I'm going to set it to the top. I guess we'll do 2.44, which is the same as the line height, I believe, for an H4. And then we'll set some background color. And we'll make it RGBA, I don't know, 32, 32, 32, 0.95. So it's almost black. And we'll save that. And then we've also, well, let's take a look at how it looks now. Right, so we can see it's sitting here up over top of the page. Actually, I'm going to change this to 16 so it's a little darker. And so you can see we've got it sitting up over top of the element here. And what I'd like to do is slide it over to left. But actually it's not over top of the element, it's over top of the page. And if you remember from before, in order to get this to be absolute inside the parent element, we have to set the parent element we have to set the position of a parent element, and the easiest is relative. So now if we upload that and refresh, now we can see it's sitting inside the parent element, so inside this article right here. So then what we want to do is I want to, first of all, take this eye and move it over and even just over to the right here, so it will still appear if we slide it off the screen. So let's do that. I'll start by creating a selector. So article, section, nav. Of course, we could do this with classes as well, which would probably be safer if you're doing a big site, but since this is a little demo, we can just do it like this. So we're going to set the width of this to be a little bit bigger than the 500 pixels. Let's do 520 pixels. And then we'll do text align and we'll set it to the right, so it'll be over on the right hand side. We'll set the background color a little bit different here. So we'll do RGBA. Let's do that. And we'll set a little bit of padding around it just to give it some breathing room. So let's upload that. And if we come over here and look, now we can see clearly we've got our nav, and it's just a little, I'm going to make it stick it out a little bit more. Let's do 530. There, that looks good to me. And so next thing we have to do is we want to move this whole thing off the page to start. So let me just go to Inspect, and we're going to click on that section, and we'll add a left minus 500 pixels. And there you go. Now we can see it's over here to the left. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it back into my CSS. So top, and then we'll put left right here to keep things nice and organized. And we'll upload that and check it, but obviously it's going to be where we said it was going to be. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to create the JavaScript in order that when we click on the eye, or actually the entire nav bar, inside this section, then it's going to slide out. So let's just double check here. So you can see I've got an ID on that section called info transform. So let's open up our JavaScript. And you can see here we've got the JavaScript for the car. We're going to be using query selectors and event listeners for this one as well. So this is for the solution. And we're going to let info equals document query selector. And in this case, we said we're going to select the info transform, I think it was. And we want the nav bar so that when we click anywhere inside the nav bar, it should work. And then we're going to set info. We're going to add an event listener. And we want it on click. And this time what we're going to do, instead of having an anonymous function, we're going to create a function that'll make it a little easier when we do the bonus challenge later. So we'll call this toggle info. So that'll be the name of our function. And now we are going to create that function. So function toggle info, and this is an event. And let's, for now, we'll just do a console. We'll log to the console, toggle info, just to make sure it's working and we haven't made any mistakes, or I haven't made any mistakes. And we'll flip over here to the console. And now if I click on that little eye, nothing happens. Let's make sure I've uploaded this. Make sure I've uploaded this. It's info transform. So it's info transform nav. So info looks good, looks good, looks good. Oh, here I've got toggle info. And here it didn't take it. And it's still not working. Oh, now it is. Okay, I just had to do a Control-Shift-R refresh to make sure that it had reloaded the entire thing. Okay. So now what we want to do is we just want to do that translate in order to move it into view. So we're going to do this. So we want So we want to move the whole thing. So we don't want to move just the nav bar, right? We want to move the section, right? So this is the section element here is the parent of the nav bar. So we can refer to this as parent node. And then what we want to do is, just like we did above, we're going to do a class list toggle, and let's call it visible, because it's going from off the screen and not visible to visible. And then we'll come back here to our transform, and we want to create that class, so visible, and we want to do a transform translate x and 500 pixels, right? So obviously 500 pixels across the x, or the horizontal, to the middle. Class list toggle visible. I think that looks good if I've uploaded everything. The JavaScript, and there we go. So you can see when I click on the nav bar, it will open and close that information box with the CSS that's relevant. And so now what we want to do is make sure that it is transitioning, or that it's animating. So we'll come and we'll add that transition. And we want to make the transition on the transform property, and we'll put it to half a second again. So we'll upload that, come back here and refresh, and now it should do nothing. Because it needs to be on the section, not on the nav. There we go. And so now you can see we've added the CSS in order, first of all, to get the information box to appear, second of all, to be off the screen, and then we've added the visible class in order to move it back onto the page where it's visible, and then we're triggering it with some JavaScript. So the JavaScript is, first of all, we're creating a query to select the nav bar, and then an event listener, so a click event listener, in order to call a function when that nav bar is clicked, and then we're adding and removing visible using the class list toggle command like we did for the car above. Next, I'm going to do the bonus challenge where, without adding too much code here, we can control the information boxes for multiple occurrences on our page. Okay, so what if we wanted to have an information section for each one of the animations that we did? So let me just copy this info transform section, and I'll paste it into the article for CSS3 for scale, and we'll change the HTML5 here to CSS3. And we'll change the rotate to scale, and I think we had it as a scale of 2 or 200%. Again, we'll take the code and we'll slide it to the left because spaces count. And then we'll do the same thing over here for translate, so we'll paste the same thing again. And we will grab, and we'll change HTML5 to car. And actually this is, let me just double check how we had it, move right. So instead of on hover, we created a move right where we transformed it using a translation of 900 pixels to the right. And then we'll take that section again and we'll slide it to the left. I've slid the whole section, only needed to slide the code. Let me just slide this one back. Doop, doop, doop. Okay. So now we've got the three different information sections. So if we upload that and then go check it out, right, we can see there's one for each. And if I click on this one now, if I click on the second one or the third, nothing happens because the browser is reading the first instance of info transform, and it doesn't do it for the other ones. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to use the query selector all. So query selector all. And then because we're only supposed to have one ID that's the same on a page, we would have the choice either of doing article, section, nav, article. Wow. Okay. So article, section, nav, or we could add a class to all three of those elements. So let's go back here, and I'm going to remove the info transform, the ID in info transform. And again, I could change it to a class. So now I've got info, and let's call it info sections so that we can make sure that we know that it is an array. So we've got multiple cases of this, and in this case, we've got 3. And then what we want to do is we want to create events, or we want to create event listeners, but we have to loop through each time. So what we're going to do is create that loop. So we'll use a for each loop. It's the easiest I find in these cases. So it's info sections. That's the name of the array of elements here. And then we want for each. And then we'll create a anonymous function, and we're doing it for each element. And then what we want to do is add the event listener. So, and then here, instead of info like we had from the previous variable, or from the previous solution, we're going to grab the element, right, that we can see being passed as a parameter to the function. And so add event listener, click, toggle info, and then this is still the same thing. So for each individual one, and I think we should be good. So let's save this and upload it and refresh. And now I can toggle that. I can toggle this one. I can toggle the first one. So we can see using just one function, but looping through and adding multiple event listeners, we can have complete control over when we're opening and closing as it's tracking each individual one. So again, we've changed our query selector to query selector all. We've added event listeners for each of the info sections, and then we're calling that function every time a user clicks on top of the nav section that's located inside the article that's located, the nav section that's located inside the article. I hope this helps.